Welcome to another episode of 22 at the Lips. I'm your podcast host, Alexis Hardwick. And if you're new to the show, if this is day one or you've followed us along this journey, this is the podcast from EMS providers such as myself to other EMS providers and anybody and everybody in between, whether you work in healthcare, whether you don't. Thanks for being on this journey. I feel like there was this cool transition whenever social media started that it went from like you have your friends on your pages and feeds and whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But it went from that to more of like the brand ability to, I guess, like not just advertise, but like educate and, along the lines of like you have all these pages of whatever type of study that you're into. Specific topics and whatnot. I trailed a little bit on that one, but there's all these different topics and stuff like that. And with that was, I feel like, the birth of the EMS community in a tighter knit setting. Whether it's you have these big names in EMS that you can follow, or you have different pages, different people that post, and it could be funny stuff. But for the most part, I think there's a big push towards the educational aspect of getting out different studies and different changes that are happening in EMS. And today is one of those such examples. If you get on the Instagram, you can find Rescue Rendezvous. And I have the host and what was the word I was looking for? Yeah.
Operator.
Yeah.
There you go. It's early.
I'm struggling. I'm the host and operator of Rescue Rendezvous, and I'm going to let him introduce himself, the page, what it does, how it's helpful, and his background to be able to post on the page. I'm sorry. So, my guy, if you want to take the lead.
Cool. So, yeah, my name's Reed. I'm from Rescue Rendezvous. We started this up about only a month ago, actually. The idea behind it has kind of shifted over time. So we started off wanting to be a space for healthcare professionals to share their case studies for other healthcare professionals to learn off of. And that's still one of our priorities, but it's kind of shifted into pushing out simple med lessons that are over complex topics or complex medications, simplified down to the form that anybody can understand. We've had a lot of success with that, and a lot of people like that. So we've kind of shifted more that way. Still looking for case studies, but that's been great. See why I'm operating the page. I don't know. I love the free medical education online. I think it's fantastic how you can get all this stuff right at your fingertips. So I wanted to jump in on that. I love listening to all the medical podcasts. So it's been exciting to push all this stuff out there and actually help out for the community a little bit.
Right. And like, I like the case studies just because it takes you from having to just like read about a specific pathology or something like that. But you can go and you can look at the case study and kind of live through that scenario. But it's not like your national registry scenarios where it's like you have X, Y, Z, whatever. But like the case studies, they're more relatable and you can actually visualize what's happening. And then like having different people that are able to comment in and say what they think it is and what their treatment would be and kind of talk that through in a discussion type of setting. I think it's really cool. But more than that, I would say, especially when you're in EMT school or paramedic school, and I think even more so whenever you're actually like done with school and you're in the field and working, those big topics kind of brought down to the basic levels in understanding posts that y'all do, I think are also super beneficial because it gives you the ability to review and kind of same pathology of people comment, give their discussion and whatnot. I support it, but
we appreciate it.
The title of Rescue Rendezvous, where did that come from?
So that's a funny story. So I'm in the Army, so sometimes I have to do 24-hour shifts that are aside from my job for other reasons. It's not fun. So I'm sitting there on a 24-hour shift at the desk, and I'm thinking like, man, I'm really bored right now, and I was looking at some medical pages, like I could start one of those. That'd be fun. And I couldn't come up with a name for like a username. And I was also doing college at the time online, so I thought, you know what? I use ChatGPT for everything on my college work. Let me jump on there and ask for a few names real quick. And so I asked for a few names, and it gave me some. And they all sounded dumb. And then I saw Rescue Rendezvous, and I was like, it's pretty sweet. And I was thinking rendezvous. It could be like, it's like a meetup for all the healthcare professionals, like a rendezvous point for us to all come together and talk about topics. So I was like, all right, thanks ChatGPT. We're gonna take that and make my own meaning behind it. And so that's where that came from.
It's not really plagiarism though, so it's all good.
Yeah. It came off my head. That's what I meant to say.
Right. This episode is not sponsored by ChatGPT. So you said you were in the Army. Thank you for your service. But you like do the medical shenanigery in the Army, or like what's your role?
So I'm a critical care flight paramedic in the Army, and it's kind of it's an interesting job. When you think about flight paramedics on the civilian side, you think about calling them in for the absolute worst of the worst. You got your extreme trauma on highway whatsoever, and you're calling the air medevac in to come pick up your patient, and things are usually pretty bad when those guys are getting called in. As a flight paramedic in the Army, you also respond to bad stuff, but you also respond to, just your average cases as well. So we're kind of like the Army's ambulance in a sense. So you can have your toe pain at 3 a.m. or you can have your massive trauma at 3 a.m. It's just like an ambulance. So where I'm at out here, I'm at the National Training Center for the Army. So thousands of soldiers will come each month and train. And it's just hundreds of miles of desert out here, and they will go do live fire training and maneuver training and all sorts of whatever they do out in the desert. So we stand by to respond to those. And it's very rural out here. We have a tiny, maybe level 4, level 3 hospital on base. So anything that does happen that's serious gets taken from that hospital to LA, Las Vegas, the bigger cities nearby.
Very cool. Very, very cool, my guy. I just couldn't imagine like having the job you do and like the title and whatnot and actually transporting a toe pain. That one
it happens more often than the other ones. I'm speaking for all the flight medics in the Army in this situation.
How does it work? Okay, so you said you're a certified flight medic. Is it the same idea of you have to be EMT certified to be like an EMT in the Army, or like, because like, and this is
so you want me to break it down for?
Yeah, because I just hear like
okay.
Army medic and stuff like that, and I don't know like how that works.
So on the Army side, medic's kind of just a synonymous term for all the medics in the Army. On the civilian side, you use medic for paramedic, and EMT is EMT, so it kind of differs there. So in the Army, when you originally join, wanting to go the medic route, you join as a combat medic, and you go through, I want to say it's like 4 weeks of EMT school. So they condense down to about a month, maybe 2 months. I don't remember. It's been a while. So you knock out the EMT school, you get your EMT cert, and once you get your EMT cert, you go into the combat medicine portion of the course. I think it's around 4 months in total of EMT and combat medic. You graduate from there and you go onto your unit, wherever that is. I personally graduated and went on to an emergency room, an Army emergency room. That's where I worked for a few years. Some people go out to the line and work with the infantry. You can really go anywhere as a medic. And the Army kind of follows. Let me finish that thought first, and then I'll get into that. So if you're wanting to excel past just being a medic in the Army, you have a few options. You can either go the flight medic route, which is what I did. You You can go special forces and be I think it's called a special forces medical sergeant. They're I would consider them like pretty close to PAs with how much knowledge they know. They're paramedics, but they are very, very well trained paramedics. I think you can go the SFAB route, where you go and teach other medics, but I think you stay in EMT in that situation. And then there's other, I'm sure more. So there's stuff you can do, but those are the main ones I can think of. But in terms of like how the ranks go, I think medical professionals in the military follow 2 ranks. You follow your experience rank in healthcare, and you follow your Army rank as well. So it can get kind of weird and convoluted. So on paper, your rank would be, private, specialist, sergeant first class, whatever your Army rank is. But for example, I'm a sergeant in the Army, and I'm a flight medic. But let's say combat medic over here is an EMT, is a sergeant first class. He outranks me Army wise, but when it comes to medical, knowledge and whatnot, I would outrank him. So you follow a weird mix between the two of the worlds, the Army world and the medical world. The Army world tends to win, but
right. So with the idea of like the medicine and like the military stance and whatnot, what would you define as what tactical medicine is? Because even like you're talking about like your toe pain and stuff like that, you have like what we have on the ground level, everyday civilian level, what's in your green bag and your scope of practice and stuff like that. But whenever you hear tactical medicine, like what does that look like? What does that mean?
So it's funny because I think tactical medicine is very overused by the cool guys, right? Tactical medicine isn't always cool. It's not always trauma. It's simply just medicine in a hostile or restricted environment. It's using limited resources to care for your patient, whether that be when you're taking fire or maybe you're just in a noise limited area or light limited area or an area that you can't access full spectrums of healthcare. It's not always trauma. It's not always a gunshot wound. It could be you're on a patrol with your platoon and somebody breaks their leg, like breaks their ankle, rolling their ankle on a rock or something. Now you have to take care of this person in a tactical situation, following the disciplines of light and noise and restricted or limited usability of your equipment and whatnot. It could even be like buddy gets a flu. It's not always trauma is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. Because I know there's, like you said, whenever someone says like Army medic, that's the first thing my mind goes to is like kind of the gore and the trauma like you talked about. But I think it kind of carries over into the civilian side because that's where, I mean, if you think of like PHTLS and whatnot, I would say 99, I forget what it actually is, but I would say 98 or 99% of our, even as far as research and stuff, but like all of our treatments kind of go back to is what did they do in the Army? And even, I think, wasn't it TXA of what was used first in the Army to kind of like obviously do its job? But
I think it was in the Ranger Battalion. Not positive, so don't quote me on that, but I think they were the first ones to push that out for pre-hospital bleeds.
Yeah. Is there, from what, I mean, it's hard to say what you do on a daily basis because every day is different, but are there things that like you guys do on y'all's side of the medical field versus what we do on like civilian street level that you wish would kind of carry over? I mean, like we said, the TXA, the tourniquets, like your basic save a life, ABCs ideas, but like anything else?
Yeah. Let's see, the Army's big push right now and the military in general actually is prolonged field care. that's being taught to all the flight medics. I'm sure all the special forces operators and all the PAs and the force surgical team guys, and um, it's just really the idea of, okay, your patient got shot, you stabilized them, you took care of them, and we're not gonna be able to evac you out now for the next 2 days. So you're gonna have to sit on this guy and take care of him for this long, right? So it's thinking down the road on what's gonna need to happen and going ahead and preparing yourself for that now. I think it's super beneficial to learn that side of it because it's thinking down the pathologies of this can turn into this and this can turn into this. So I can do this now to better my patient's outcome in the long run. I know for the most part, pre-hospital medicine is taught to stabilize, drop at hospital, done with patient, and you never see him again. But it's great to have that mindset because you can kind of think like, this guy is going to go into this, into this, and this. He might need this, and this in the wrong one. So I can probably go ahead and do this for the nursing staff or for that doctor. Or I can go ahead and assist in treating this. And I think that's a great skill to have and a great knowledge to have.
No, absolutely. Another thing, like you kind of talked about the civilian side too, Army and whatnot, having, like you talked about, that prolonged care mindset, not just, I'm going to fix this right now and that's what's going to happen. And I mean, we can see that in some aspects of basic training that we do, such as like with any patient, really, we're not just dumping a liter of fluid to every single patient. We're not, especially like our trauma patients, we keep them warm and we don't just dump liters of fluids to these trauma patients and turn their blood pink.
Did you see our post on that?
No, which one?
Oh, okay. That's funny because we posted on that, I guess, a few weeks ago, and it started a whole bunch of arguments and controversy on our page. The comment section was going wild. It was really entertaining.
But yeah, like we stopped doing all these things that are actually not necessarily like what we can see in the moment of, okay, cool, I'm dumping all these fluids and their blood pressure's coming up, great. But
it's just a placebo for yourself, honestly. Like looking at that blood pressure, like, yeah, you see a better blood pressure now, but you're really just diluting the Kool-Aid. You're worsening the patient. So,
and like exactly, and even if you're not going to see it in that moment, give them a day or give them, some patients less than a day, and they're going to tank. But having that, if I do X, Y, Z, this could happen, during their ER stay, or hopefully not their hospital stay and stuff like that.
I think it's a different mindset too. Because I've worked in the hospital, I've worked in the pre-hospital side as well. And in the hospital is comfortable. You have everything at your fingertips. If something goes wrong, there's 20 other people to blame. You have a whole staff of hands to help you out with this, and this. All you have to say is, I want this, this, this. And taking time to get labs isn't something that's going to take time away from the essentials either, because you're going to have this person grabbing labs while this person's doing this. So they have a very wide spectrum of the things that they can do within a short time compared to, pre-hospital, your, blood's flying everywhere and fluids are spiking and meds are pushed and your head's like on crack and like the bang's starting to hit you, from like an hour ago. So it's a whole different spectrum of care. And I don't think they can really wrap their heads around, like, we don't sit in the back of the ambulance or in the back of the helicopter and go, now I can do this, 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 and I wonder what happened. Like it's a whole different ball game. I think it's hard for people to comprehend. So
I always had this idea that before, if you want to be an ER doctor or an ER nurse, before you actually are able to start that position, you should have one ride on the ambulance, just because, dude, we dropped off a patient at the hospital, and one of the nurses was coming back out to ask a question. She went back in and grabbed like 2 or 3 other nurses, and she came back out and she was like, we've never seen the back of an ambulance. And we're like, are you serious? And they were like, yeah. So like we opened the doors and they're like, it's so small. We were like, yeah. And so I looked at one nurse, I'm like, so this is why we get really frustrated when you ask, like, when we have these critical patients we bring in, and y'all say, "Did you get a blood sugar?" And it's like us and one, hopefully, or two other firefighters writing in.
Well, there's a push right now for the EMS fellows too, like the EMS physicians. I don't know if you've seen that, but they'll have like their own truck, and it's in the bigger cities mainly. But if you have an ambulance that'll respond to a call, and then they'll also have a radio in their own truck in their own aid bag, and they'll pop onto different calls and whatnot, and check in and see if you need help. And it's pretty sweet. I know San Antonio's doing it. You'll hear me refer to San Antonio a few times because that's where I did my medic school and whatnot. But San Antonio is doing it. So it was pretty cool. We'd be on a scene, and the next thing you know, a doc would just pull up, or he'd be just there, and he'd just be there waiting for us. Be like, "Hey, I've gone through this and this with her. And I know her primary care physician too, by the way. He's a good guy, so I trust what he's doing with this medication wise." And so it's pretty sweet. It's exciting to see.
No, I'm here for that. I feel like another way to look at that would also be the mitigation of patients who want to be checked out by a physician. And like, I'm thinking like these little fender benders and stuff like that, that really don't even need to go to the ER and can go to an urgent care.
Definitely.
Having a physician look at them like a doctor and be like, "No, you can go to," I think that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. And that also goes to the push of the community paramedic as well, that they're trying to get out there. I don't know if you've looked at that at all, but that's a big push too.
So with your post about the things you had kind of mentioned about like the bringing big topics, big complex topics down to the basics, are there like specific things you try to look for besides like, when you posted was adenosine, like what it is, its properties and stuff like that? Or are you trying to gear it towards like students or basic providers? Like what's your target audience?
Yeah, pretty wide spectrum. So we want to help out from the EMT level all the way up to any doctors that may want to follow our page, right? So our page is very random with the things that we post. So it could be, because it's all spectrums of care. We frequently tell our EMTs that follow us, no question is a dumb question. And if you are trying to learn something, we will gladly put a lesson on it on our page. So, I mean, we had a lesson on homeostasis because somebody asked for it. Somebody said that they were an ER tech and they were trying to, I think, get their EMT license, or they were an EMT, something like that. But they wanted to know about homeostasis and how little imbalances can throw our body off. And so we're like, yeah, we'll do a post on that. So we posted on that. And then, a few weeks later, we're doing a critical care case review. And then a few weeks later, we're doing, medications. And it's pretty all over the place. But we take requests from the viewers. And then when, no matter how simple the request, we break that down and we push it out. I know I hated whenever I was in school, like wanting to ask something and then not asking it because I felt like it was a dumb question. And then later down the road, I find out that that was a small question that could have helped my understanding on a small topic, which is now thrown off by understanding on a big topic. So we kind of want to break that mindset over where we're at and just give everybody exactly what they need and help out the best that we can. And it's also geared towards my learning as well. So if I'm learning about something and I'm kind of helping myself learn it by doing the research, educating myself, putting it all onto a post and putting it out there. So it kind of follows my studying plan as well.
No, 100%. Somebody told me before I even started paramedic school, they told me the same idea of like, and I love it, no question is a dumb question. And when I was teaching high school English, that's what I used to tell my students, like, no question is a dumb question. In that setting, sometimes they were dumb questions, but that's not the point. But somebody told me, they're like, look, in class, if you have a question or as you're reading, whatever, go ahead and ask it and make sure that other people could hear it, because somebody else probably has that same question. They don't want to ask. And so I'm like, you know what? I will. And so it got to the point that because I was like, I did not ask questions. People would people in class would like pass me a piece of paper that would be like, "Hey, can you ask this question? Just don't want to ask it." And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and especially when you're in school, like that's your time to ask the dumb questions because who are you going to ask whenever you're going to a call and it's just you and your EMT, or you like with critical care, if you're flying, you're thousands and thousands of feet in the air with you and your partner, and that's it. Like ask the dumb questions before the real life time.
That's if you have a partner too, which is
Ooh.
in the Army side, we fly single paramedic. We have a crew chief who's a mechanic, and he does the flying portion whenever we're doing medical care. It's just you.
Jesus.
But yeah, no. But back to that. Yeah, I just threw me off. But back to that point, though. Yeah, no dumb question's a dumb question. Unless you are an EMT in medic school and it's like the last 5 minutes of class and everybody wants to go home, don't be the don't be the one asking all the questions at that point. I think every class has one of those.
Don't come at me. That was absolutely me. What would you say would be like first steps if someone's interested in going into the military medicine side of healthcare, becoming an Army medic and doing all the really cool things? What are like first steps?
So I'd say do it for the right reasons. Firstly, the pay is not anywhere near the pay of a civilian paramedic, and it can be really frustrating. So, yeah, doing it for the right reasons, doing it because you want to serve, acknowledging that it's not always cool medicine. I'd say it's cool medicine like 5% of the time, and then the other 95%, it's stupid Army stuff. Like, hey, there's going to be a road march tomorrow. I need you to go sit on the side of the road with your aid bag and just watch to make sure that nobody hurts themselves or falls out. Or, hey, I need you to go sit in the barracks for like 24 hours to make sure that everybody's okay and pull your duty. Or that kind of stuff falls in line with Army medicine. So it's not always super cool, fun, cool guy stuff, So I would definitely keep that in mind. I know the recruiters will push out like, be a combat medic and go put on tourniquets and save lives. But like, the chance of you actually going and putting on a tourniquet on somebody, especially in a peacetime setting, it's like none. You're going to be doing sweeping the floors and stuff. But aside from that, there are plenty of cool learning opportunities. You get to do a lot of cool stuff that a lot of people don't get to do in medicine. All within the Army scope of practice, which is anything the doctor says you can do, you're good to do. So that's fun. I've gotten to do a lot of cool things that I would not have been able to do otherwise. But what is kind of annoying though is I say do it for the right reasons, the pay. So like the EMT who works with the mechanics in the motor pool, fixing up the vehicles and helping them out with that is making the same pay as me. And I went to school for an additional 2 years to become where I'm at now, and we're making the same pay, So it's kind of frustrating. Doing it for the right reasons will keep you motivated, though. So,
absolutely. Yeah. That would be painful. But as far as like the experience and stuff like that, I feel like that would be super cool.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to ask you about as well, to compare the differences between the Army's paramedic school and the civilian paramedic school, because I haven't worked with a lot of civilian paramedics, and I don't have really any idea of how that flows and how that works, like where you start, where you end, and the topics that you flow through to get to that point. I'm a paramedic that's never actually worked in an ambulance, which is a really weird situation, So I don't get to talk to a lot of real paramedics, as I say, very often.
So like, are you asking like the EMT
like
school
no, like for a paramedic school on the civilian side, like what kind of timeline do you follow, and
what
does it look like?
Some of it kind of depends on the program that you go through. I'll give a little free promo. I went through School of EMS. Master Medics is actually sponsored. It's actually with School of EMS. But ours was a hybrid program, which I know some people have mixed feelings about, but started in like January-ish of 2020, I think 2020, whatever. And like we finished the actual like program by December-ish of that same year. So it was hybrid. So like we did mostly online. There were 3 weeks out of the whole year that we had to be like in person to do our like our big tests, big certifications like ACLS, PHTLS, PALS, all that stuff, and like get our skills check off and stuff like that. But from January to December, I mean, it was the class portion and then your ride times as well. So you'll be on the ambulamp doing all your stuff, getting all your skills in. Then you pass and then you do all your registries. So ours was about a year, give or take.
Okay. So the that's interesting. So you actually had time to like sit down, learn your topics. Did you feel rushed at all throughout your course? Or I mean, I know it's a lot of stress, a lot of information, but
it's hard because there is so much to pack in, and you become an expert in not just the one specific thing, but all the things all at once. And so you have your basic like legal operations, stuff like that. Then you have airway. And in that span of time, you have to like refresh your EMT level and then add on other things. Like, not too crazy. Then you have like your pharmacology on top of that. So it's all these new meds and what they do. And then you do your AMP right before you even start paramedic school. So that's like another 3 or so months. I know School of EMS, they pair it together so it didn't have to do AMP and then whatever. So it's like, as you're going through, you're building on all of these topics while learning more topics to build on those topics, to learn the additional, and then you have med math.
Let's check out our video on our page. We have an excellent video on med math. Shout that out there.
There's never enough help with med math, but
I know.
I don't know. It's hard to say rush because and then there's some aspects that like we just don't cover enough. Like I know for me, it's the psych calls. It's not just like, hey, push this if they're crazy, but like, okay, my patient's not combative, but they're gonna. I don't know how to verbally de-escalate yet. Like I'm decent enough now, but at the time,
you're doing clinicals throughout your schooling, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have your on the ambulance clinicals, your ride times, so you have to do a certain amount of hours, or you have to get certain specific skills within your time. On top of, I know some programs they do, like you can go to an OR clinical, you can go to every topic, like your peds, your OB, your ER clinicals. That's a lot of them. Yeah. So just kind of also little taste of every specific topic to kind of nail it in the head.
Yeah. So that's a whole different route of schooling and the Army goes about. So I think that's really interesting because I think you actually had a lot more time to learn the topics, and I think it's great that you guys do clinicals throughout your schooling, so you can kind of see firsthand, like, hey, we talked about this in class, and boom. We didn't get that opportunity. So ours is, I want to say like 6 or so months, maybe less. So you get to, no, it's going to be a little more than that actually. So you get to the schoolhouse and you do your first 2 months on, you do AMP 1 and 2. In the first 4 weeks, you do intro to farm, intro to all the systems like cardiac, respiratory, all that good stuff. If you pass block 1, then you go into block 2, and you go into paramedic medicine. So you do all the average paramedic medicine and assessments and whatnot. going over all the paramedic scope practice medications and procedures, interventions, and whatnot. So that's your paramedic school pretty much. That's another 2 or so months. Then you do a week of dental care, and you do a week of behavioral health care. Going into, they will have like a psychologist come in, give you a week's worth of lecture on behavioral health. So that kind of helps out those BH patients, behavioral health patients. And then we practice, with the dental care, they really try to make us like a master of an overall healthcare professional and like okay at all the different specialties. So for dentistry, we learned how to how to splint a tooth back into place, how to do nerve blocks on each other, which is really scary because your classmates like coming in with a big old needle full of whatever it's called. It's not lidocaine. It's sort of the dentist version of this. I don't remember. So yeah, you do that. How to like fill in a cavity I forgot half of that stuff. And from there, you test out on your paramedic skills and assessment. You go into your block 3, which is it's like you completely take a break from paramedic school. And this is really annoying to me because I'll explain why in a second, but it's also the most fun part of school. You take a break from paramedic school and you do operational medicine for 2 months. So that's going out to the field and learning, TC3 on a deeper level, TC3 on like a know the page level. So like you're going through the entire TC3 book and everything by the numbers you're learning. You get tested out on a trauma assessment, and it's a high stress trauma assessment. So it's going through the entire realms of TC3, and the entire time, you're getting yelled at like, hey, we got to hurry, we got to get off here. We're getting shot at now, so we need to move over here. You're in full kit, helmet, vest, everything, sweating, hating life, going through your entire assessment, doing some like deeper paramedic and TC3 medicine in a hostile environment, which is cool. And then you go into practicing drawing blood on each other in case that you need to do like a walking blood bank. So we practice on each other for that. And you get your blood back after you're done. So they don't take it from you. But so we practice infusing it back into each other. Then you go on to prolonged field care and learn how to sit on a patient for more than, the allotted hour or 2 hours that you'd actually normally have the patient. You do DCR, damage control resuscitation, all that stuff. And you do a week testing out on all that stuff and proving like, hey, I can also be a combat clinician as well on top of being a regular paramedic. And that's exciting. Then you go into like an entire week of CBURN training. So like chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear. And once you finish all that, you go right back into your paramedic medicine and you learn the operations and then immediately take registry. So you take a break for like 2 months and learn all the Army medicine, and then you jump right back into it, do like a week's worth of learning the operations that you need to know for the registry, and then you take the registry. So that was pretty stressful because, you learn all this cool stuff, and then it's like, hey, forget everything that you learned here because that's not okay for registry. For registry, you need to know it by this, this, and this. So once you get your registry, take that back. You do a week's worth of operations, then you do your clinicals, and then you do registry. So they cram all the clinicals at the end. So it's a month of ride-outs, and then it's a month of in hospital. Every single day straight for whatever is it, like 60 days. Knock all that out, and then throughout that time, you're studying for your registry. Then you take your registry. If you pass, then you move on to critical care, and you're a brand new paramedic who just got his license like a day ago, and now you're in a critical care class, and you're learning vents, you're learning, arterial pressures and waveforms, you're learning IABPs and all that deep stuff, and you're immediately tested out on these topics for 2 months. You do helicopter simulations of sitting back in the helicopter and transferring critical patients. They want you to talk through your process of flow. Like, let's say you got a sedated patient and their head injury, and next thing you know, like their heart rate's shooting up through the roof, and everything else like is fine and it makes sense. And like, so what's going on with this guy? And like they want you to write around that kind of stuff and like think through it. And again, you're a brand new paramedic and you just finished some critical care classes and you're already expected to know that kind of stuff. And so that's pretty intense. Once you finish the classroom setting of that, you're doing your critical care clinicals. So that's at the Level 1 Trauma Center in San Antonio, the Army's Level 1 Trauma Center, Montgomery Medical Hospital. You're going in there and you're in the trauma room and you're helping take care of the traumas. And then you're in the ICU, sitting on a patient for an entire shift. Then you're in the cardiac ICU. Then you're in the OR. Then you're in the burn unit. And you're getting all these hands-on with these critical patients, which is super exciting. You do your cadaver labs, and those are fun. I'm not going to dwell on those, but those are fun. And then you test out in critical care. You have the option to take the FPC. It's not required in the Army, though. You can be a critical care flight medic, and most are without your FPC. If mostly you see the guys that are getting out soon get that certification. And so then from there, you move on to your crew member course. And unlike the civilian side with flight medics, on the civilian side of flight medics, you're doing just medicine. And on the Army side, you're a crew member before you're a clinician. So you are sitting in the back of the helicopter, you're scanning your sectors because the Black Hawk is such a big helicopter. You're kind of like the rear view mirrors for the pilots. So you're sitting back there, like he's like, hey, I'm turning left. Like, oh, okay, you're clear left. You're good to go left. You're kind of playing that role. You're also learning how to do maintenance on the helicopter and all the systems of the helicopter. So you have to know, like, so fuel goes through this, and this, and that's how it gets to the engine. And you're, on that deep level, just like you would in the body, you're looking at the helicopter and you're learning all of those mechanics. The aircraft has this kind of electricity, and this kind of electricity starts this, and when the pilot presses that, then this goes to this system. And so you're kind of putting all the medicine that you just learned on the back burner, and then you're learning the entire operations of this helicopter. And I still don't 100% understand why they want us to know on that level. Still trying to figure that out, but it's a part of the course. And you are a crew member before you're a clinician. So if there's an emergency scenario, helicopter-wise, helicopter-related, like a caution light pops on, you're stopping your medical care, you're getting back in your seat, and you're crewing the aircraft as if you were just a normal crew member. And then once you finish all that, you get your unit, and you get put on a probationary period, which is however long it is until you're cleared. So you have to get trained by a flight instructor once you get to your unit. So that's taking you out on flights, getting you hours, training you on how to land this way, how to land this way, what's to look out for here. Hey, how does this fuel go through here in the helicopter? How does this start? And that could take a few months. It could take up to a year. It just depends on how long they want to take that period over and how many flight instructors your unit has. So mine only has one. So I've been here for, I guess, 8 or so months now, and I'm just now about to get to the point where I'm going to be able to fly on my own because I'm still in the probationary period of, hey, learn this topic, learn how to do the hoist, coming off the hoist line. So it's a whole thing. So by the time that you start paramedic school to be a flight medic in the Army, to the time you finish, you're looking at like 2 years minimum, which is still a lot faster than the civilian side. Yeah, so it's a great way for, if flight medicine is what you want to do and you have no other desire to do flight medicine and you want to get in the seat fast, the Army's a great way to do that. Going through the National Guard and keeping your civilian job, but also doing all the Army stuff, that'll get you in the seat as a flight medic fast. Versus the civilian side, they want like 4 or 5 years of high call volume ALS experience, and they want you to have this, and this, and it's a whole different ball game. Sorry for the rant, but just comparing the two different sides, it's a whole different ball game. And shout out to the civilian flight guys because incredibly smarter than us. They have much more experience than we do. We might have some of the same certifications, but at the end of the day, those guys are going to out-knowledge us when it comes to their skill level. I mean, they respond to these high-level calls like daily, like these extreme traumas on the interstate daily. And, we might get lucky to have one of those a month, maybe one every 2 months. It's, you never know. So those guys are super great resources to use when it comes to medical education, pre-hospital setting and whatnot. So just want to give them their credit where it's due.
To that's a quick turnaround of time as far as like getting through the actual schooling aspect and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's quick. Yeah. And I know a lot of people hate the whole fire hose method that the Army uses to teach you. It's like, hey, here's a bunch of information, learn it, and take your tests. It can definitely have its downsides, but also like it really gets the I mean, for me at least, it really pushes that information and pushes the importance of the information to where it's ingrained in me. So the Army, if you fail, it's a lot more stressful than the civilian side. Civilian side, you keep your EMT job and continue on with life. Maybe you'll go back to medical school in another year or so. On the Army side, if you fail out, then you kind of have a little uncertainty with your career because you re-enlist for an additional however many years to go to the school. Say it's 4. That's what it usually is. And if you fail out, then the Army your needs of the Army. So if they need a medic and this infantry platoon and whatever state in this terrible unit up wherever, you fail out, that's where you're going. Sorry. Like you don't have any say in where you're moving to if you fail out. So that puts another layer of stress on, like, I don't want to be known as the guy that failed out flight medic school. And now I'm in this unit and I hate my job. So there's that level of stress, and there's also the level of stress of like, hey, we're gonna learn AMP 1 in 2 weeks. So here's all the information, learn it, and you're sitting there. I mean, when you're not at school, you're studying. You're not at school, you're studying. It's in the cycle. So it really pushes that information in, and I like that aspect of it. But I also love the aspect on the Army side of the chaos. So they train with chaos. Everything that they do, training you, is a high level stress environment. Whether that be somebody sitting in your ear yelling at you while you're doing your patient assessment, or they're going to throw this at you, but they're also going to throw this other stuff at you while you're trying to figure this out. So you got multiple lanes of thinking while you're working on your patient, and it's every single scenario and consistently. So when you graduate, you are already like hardened up, like stress level wise, like, oh man, I just got given this patient and they had so many problems and it was so stressful. And then now when you take your patient that's like, I don't know, whatever it is, it's like, oh, this isn't too bad. So I wish that's something that I like about the Army side of it that I think would be great, if it was somehow implemented as well on the civilian side. I know you can only really do so much in that sense, but it's pretty cool though.
Especially like it takes what you've learned to a whole different level whenever it's the setting that y'all have, because like whenever I was going through paramedic school, my instructor was actually a SWAT medic as well. And so whenever we got to trauma, we had these wild scenarios that, like, there was one where we were responding at this fair and there was a shooter and all this stuff. And we're supposed to like go find our patients and treat them immediately and then like bring them back to safety. And I was in like, we were all paired up into the little teams and stuff like that. And so whenever it got to our team, I looked at it, I was like, but the scene isn't safe. I was like, this is basic registry. I was like, my unit's parked a couple of blocks down. Like, I'm not coming in. She's like, you don't have time. I'm like, but my scene's not safe. Wait. So there's no staging in the Army. There's no like, I'll wait for it to get better. Like, this is it.
So yeah, there's not is the scene safe in the Army, but there is we still have fire superiority, right? So like we've suppressed the guy of fire, not like we go by TC3 in that sense. Like, hey, we suppressed the guy's fire enough. Now go ahead and there is more of a risk definitely that the Army takes on versus the civilian side takes on, which rightfully so. There's no reason to be running into gunfire as a civilian paramedic. That's dumb. No. Don't do that. But on the Army side, it's kind of the expected. So I think it's two different mindsets. But yeah, seen as safe is definitely still very important.
Man, how did you even? I'm still trying to grasp. Like I'm thinking of how much stress I had during paramedic school when I was just. I mean, I was working full time, but also like I had school, and even like people that I work around that are in paramedic school, stressing all the time, and like because you have clinicals, you have to study, you have class, you have work on top of all that. Like there's no sleep, caffeine all the time. But we had like almost double the amount of time that y'all do. So how did you study? Like besides being in the class, how do you study? Because I mean, we have
That
different
was
like books and videos, and Master Medics was a really great program.
yeah.
But I mean, it takes time to do that. Y'all don't have time.
Yeah.
Like,
So we still have the same books that y'all have, the same videos. Like, it's actually a very well put together and very educational course. Like, I think people think of Army Medic and they think like, here's a stick and here's a lecture and we're out in the woods and try to figure out how to make this stick into blah blah blah. Like, it's not like that. It's a terrible analogy. It's a very formal setting. I mean, it's a huge schoolhouse where all the Army's higher level of education is. So we're in the schoolhouse with the PAs, the physical therapists, the brand new docs that just graduated that are learning how to become a medical officer, and it's all within the same realm of the schoolhouse. The base that we learn on is a military. It's the military's epicenter for medical training. So you have resources everywhere. But the main difference between us and y'all is that our full-time job is to go to school. So I'm not doing anything besides going to school for the time period that I'm down there. So that's why they can get away with shoving more information at us quicker, because we're expected to go home, and that's your life. You're expected to go home and study. So for us, it's like, hey, here's AMP1 in a week and a half, 2 weeks. You're going to school at, and I think it started like around usually like 8 a.m. and you're getting out at 5. Grab some dinner on your way home, go home, and go straight into your study spot and knock some studying out. And then you test weekly. If you fail a test, you have one more opportunity to take that test. If you fail it twice, you're done. And that's it. You can either appeal and hope to recycle back into the class behind you and restart, or you can just get the boot. Most of the time it's just getting kicked out. So that high level of stress really, it sounds crazy and it sounds like a lot, but when you have stress that high, your body reacts in weird ways to stress naturally. So you just naturally are like studying, like the stuff you're studying is just naturally going to, in my opinion at least, click harder, because it's like fight or flight for 2 years straight. It's like, I need to know this, or I'm screwed, because I don't want to put this on my family of having to move to wherever. For me personally, my wife was actually pregnant with our second while I was in school, and it got so intense to the point that, we bought a house in our hometown, in our home state, and we moved her home. And my wife and my son moved back to our home state to live near family, so that they had some resources while she was pregnant. Because I was so, I'm not saying to put work first, but in the Army, I didn't really have a choice. Unlike the civilian side, if I was in the civilian side, I'd probably wait until she was not pregnant to do this course. But I didn't really have a choice on the Army side. So we moved them home, and I moved in with my buddy who was in the physician assistant course in the Army. And he gave me a room at his house. So I would go to school. I'd come back. My wife and kid were at home because they were living family back in our home state. And I just go to my room and study until 12 o'clock at night, every night. And kind of had to learn my study habit on top of that, because I didn't really do any college before going to school. So I was learning my study habit, living alone, going to school full time, studying late nights. It was a lot. But on the outcome of that, though, within that short 2 years, I've become a critical care flight medic, and my wife and my kids live with me again, and everything's great now, and the stress is gone, and it feels so good to be, done with that, and it's accomplishing for sure. So I don't want to knock on the program. The program's great, but it is very stressful, and it completely differs from y'all's side because we are a full-time student. So it's two different types of stress. For y'all, it's stressful of balancing work and school, and for us, it's balancing the school and some sort of home life if we can make time for it, because it's heavy hitting from the jump. So that's where I'd say studying came into play, and the differences. It's a lot, definitely.
It's definitely intense, man. Jeez, man. Proud of you for getting through it.
Thank you.
Congrats.
It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun, but now it's fun that we're done with it. So
yeah.
So with everything I've said aside, I do not recommend being a brand new paramedic and jumping right into a critical care course. I would totally recommend becoming a paramedic and master being a paramedic, master your skills as a paramedic, and then go on after you've gotten to that point, maybe go on then to a critical care course. I think going from paramedic school the next day into critical care can really be hurtful on, a few things, because you come out the mindset of, oh, I'm a critical care paramedic now. I can do this, and this. And, it can almost hurt the basics because you're forgetting like the basic paramedic medicine. So if you are a paramedic looking to get into critical care on the civilian side, I totally recommend mastering your paramedic skills before going to critical care school. But I'm also not one of the guys to say you can't go to critical care school. Well, you've only been a paramedic for this many months or this many years. Everybody's on a different level. So if you are just clicking with you and you're a great paramedic off the jump, and it's rare, but if you got all your skills mastered and you feel comfortable as a paramedic within a few months to a year of being a paramedic, then absolutely go on and further your education in critical care. I think every paramedic, if you are looking to make it a career, should absolutely go to take a critical care class, even if that's not what you're planning on doing. Even if you're not trying to go down the flight route or critical care transport route, I still think it's a fantastic resource to know this stuff, because again, it gives you that further line of thought, thinking down the process of, this is my patient and this is what they're going through, and it's going to turn into this, and this down the road, so I can do this now. I think that's a fantastic way to look at things. I appreciate you having me on. I loved your episode you had with your pastor. That was fantastic. It was cool seeing the patient perspective. That was really cool. I like that.
Thank you.
This is my first podcast I jumped on, so I was excited to get on here and talk.
Oh, happy to have you on, my guy. I like your page. I like what you're doing with it.
Yeah, everybody check us out. I'm just gonna plug our page real quick. We're on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Our biggest following is on TikTok, though. I'm not a TikToker, but it just happens to be where our information really makes its presence. So it's at Rescue Rendezvous on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram.
Cool. Thank you. I don't know if it's cliche or not, or cheesy, whatever, but thank you for your service. I
appreciate it.
Definitely not an easy feat, but my guy, if that's all you got, that's all I got.
That's all I got.
And as I end every single episode, so with that.
The 22 at the Lips podcast is designed to support, not replace, the relationship that exists between a practitioner and his or her medical director. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host, guest, and not necessarily of Master Medics. The information provided during this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for your approved protocols.